Hi guys, Brand here, and welcome to another commentary video. Today we're going to be talking about game balancing and two basic principles that apply to game balancing that works every single time you're in a scenario where someone is going to be facing another player directly, player-on-player action. That these two balancing decisions will always put your game in a healthy state. However, DBD kind of likes to go off the rails with this sometimes, aptly as we just saw with Blast Mine. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So the two gaming principles that I am talking about are something that we've brought up on the channel at length before, but I wanted to make this video to kind of put it in concrete, kind of have it there for you always, is that there are two ways to balance things in player versus player games. You can make something strong, but rare to access, or common, but only all right in terms of strength. This is an idea that's been in gaming forever, mostly used in fighting games. Fighting games have ultras or finishers, which require a lot of resources to do, which you have to build up throughout the entire match, but they do a lot of damage. So even though they're not happening a lot of the time, when the effect finally goes off, it's incredibly powerful. But since it's so rare, it doesn't feel unfair because it's not happening every 2 seconds. But also they utilize the common but only alright in strength principle with their super moves, that being like Ryu's Hadouken, which does not do a whole lot of damage, but it's available to you anytime you like and has a lot of utility in terms of winning the match. Now, behavior, for the most part, follows this principle pretty well, and you can see a lot of great perk designs when it comes to them following these design principles. A perfect example of a perk that's really strong but rare in use is a Nurse's Calling. Nurse's Calling quite literally grants wall hacks. And if you think about that, and if you ever faced a hacker in DBD that has wall hacks, facing somebody who has wall hacks is very frustrating and hard and basically has zero counterplay. It's very, very frustrating and annoying to deal with. However, Nurse's Calling is limited by the fact that it only has a 28-meter range, as well as only happening while people are healing. So even though wall hacks themselves inherently are incredibly powerful, borderline OP, it is so limited by its range and so limited by the time of how it can only be happening while you are healing someone or being healed yourself, that it doesn't really happen to go off that often. So even though it is just straight wall hacks, it's so limited by range and the action that has to be a prerequisite for it to even go off that it doesn't ever feel like an OP or too strong perk, because it's not. It's perfectly balanced by the fact that even though it's a strong effect, it is in fact rare. On the flip side, a common but okay good example would be Enduring. Enduring happens literally every single time you're stunned by a pallet, lowering your stun duration every single time you're hit by that pallet. That is quite literally happening every single time you get hit with a pallet in chase, which makes it incredibly common. However, despite its effect being nice, helping you stay in the chase, it's not directly winning you the chases per se, it's just making them go a little nicer. So even though the power is incredibly common, it's not enough that it's OP, it's not an overwhelming power, so therefore nobody really considers Enduring OP because all it does is just help a little bit despite how frequently it happens. And to me, that's what makes the Blast Mine controversy so puzzling to me. And I know we've already made that video talking about, well, they just wanted it to work a specific way that they had already envisioned and it was apparently bugged this whole time. But Blast Mine already followed the principles of design. Blast Mine is a very, very not helpful perk. It definitely falls more into the common frequent use, but it's only an alright effect. Getting the stun on a killer when they kick a gen isn't really helpful at all, because all you have to do is just wait a few seconds and then just kick the gen again. So it's not preventing the use of perks like Pop or Overcharge, because all you have to do is just wait out the stun and kick it again. So it's not preventing slowdown from happening. That's not its use. Its main use was more that it highlights the gens that the Blast Mine was set on, so in solo queue you have a better idea of which gens to do. Now, Wiretap does that way better now, so that's its own argument. That's a whole other can of worms. Anyways, but yeah, it was more of a solo queue warrior kind of perk. It was like, hey guys, let's make sure that we know that I'm on a gen, you know I'm on a gen, and if you have proof, you can come over here and help me on this gen. And if we're, it's just helpful in terms of like having no comms and communicating. But like these effects aren't strong, so it didn't matter that it was commonly happening because these effects weren't strong to begin with. So it didn't matter that these effects were frequent because they weren't enough to really turn the tide of a game or do something extraordinarily OP. However, they chose instead to make the frequency of the perk even lower by making it to where it expires every single time you play Blast Mine to a gen, making you have to charge uses over and over and over and over and over again. So it kind of goes against the design philosophy, right? Because you had a effect that was already okay or just all right in strength, but it could happen commonly, so it was perfectly balanced. Then you made it both uncommon to achieve and weak at the same time, meaning that there's kind of just like very little reason to run this perk anymore, because why would you have a rare effect that you've been striving a long time to achieve that's not even that great? Doesn't make sense, does it? Now let's look at a survivor example of a perk that is also fundamentally incorrect in the way that it goes about it, except on the other side, in terms of strength and unrarity. Let's look at Prove Thyself. Prove Thyself has historically been a very problematic perk in the game of Dead by Daylight, because Dead by Daylight has implemented a system to where you get diminishing returns if you stack on generators together. However, you can just mitigate this by applying Prove Thyself, which applies a bonus when you're stacking together on a gen. Therefore, getting rid of one of the prime ways that DBD's inherent mechanics try to get rid of people slamming out gens, which is just makes you wonder, huh? Now, Prove Thyself fundamentally goes against this rule of trying to make something strong but rare, because honestly, stacking on gens with your teammates is not rare at all, or difficult to achieve at all. So you're going to be realistically getting this effect very often during the match. So even though the game itself has tried to put in many obstacles of those diminishing returns while stacking on generators, you can just throw on Prove Thyself, easily follow people around and find other survivors, and very, very easily achieve this very, very powerful effect, because generator speeds are one of the easiest ways to win the match. You guys are seeing that with hyper focus and toolboxes right now, is that gen speed, gen rushing versus gen slowdown has always been the most powerful things in this game. So making them hard to achieve, or outright removing them, has always been better for the game health on both sides with the gen rushing and the gen slowdown themselves. But Prove has always flown in the face of this by being super easy to achieve, despite it fundamentally quite literally winning games because of its existence. This perk quite literally wins games because it exists. It literally, very, very commonly, is the reason a match goes from an L to a dub. And what is the cost? Is it hard to achieve? No, you just have to find someone else in the trial, and there's 3 other people. Is it infrequent? No, because whenever you find somebody else, GG's, get on the gen, get that effort, get that reward. You just gotta hop on the gen with them. So it's not rare, it's not hard to achieve, but it's quite literally turning matches into a W. So it fundamentally goes against those design philosophies, just in more of a OP sort of way. So while DBD does have a lot of ways that they do follow these design principles very, very well, you can see that often they do fail at achieving them. And those are often the problem perks in the game, the things we look at and we get upset about. And if you look at this in the future, that's why I'm like the TLDR, why I'm making this video, is those are the 2 principles at which you can measure perks, characters, etc. and go, did this happen correctly in a fair way, or is this going to be a problem? Does this suck, or is it fine? And you can use these 2 principles as a litmus in order to decide that. Yeah, that's gonna be it for today's videos, friends. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you so much for spending time with me today. And if I don't see you in tomorrow's video, I will see you when I see you.